You know, I asked a question.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on Monday, December 4th. We have all JPS committee members present, so we have a quorum, and I call this evening's JPS meeting to order. All right. If you're following along on the agenda, that was item number 1. We are now going to move to item number 2 on the agenda this evening, which is consideration of minutes of November 6th, 2023 meeting. Second. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. That closes item 2. Item 3, which is chair comments on meeting and agenda organization by Supervisor Stafford. Just a note, item number 6 on the agenda this evening, Damascus Road Project, will be moved to January. They had a conflict. So they're not going to be able to come tonight and talk about that. So please note that item 6 will be a January discussion area. And I'll make a comment now. Yeah, I'll make the comment now. Before the meeting, I had a conversation, and Supervisor Eisen was so kind to let me know of a very significant passing in the community on November 30th that I'd like to make sure everyone's aware of. He was a great public servant for the county, and there was a death of Patrick O'Brien. From the due diligence of Supervisor Eisen, found that he was on the actual Judiciary Committee since before 2003. And in fact, if you look out in the vestibule area, his name is on the plaque. But he has been the chair of the Solid Waste Management Board since 2006. And Supervisor Eisen also found mentions of him in meeting minutes dating back to 1982. So this gentleman was definitely someone who loved the community and did a lot of great work. And out of respect for him and his family, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence in commemoration of his service. Okay, thank you very much. And our thoughts and prayers go out to family of Patrick O'Brien as well. Thank them for the service. Okay, with that, we are going to close item number 3 and open up item number 4, public comments within the jurisdiction of this committee. We're going to start within the room and then move to Zoom if there are any in Zoom. So with that, any comments? Please come forward.
Mary Ann Miller, 112 Otter Avenue, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I just wanted all of the committee members to know that I have received an opioid litigation update from our national council, and it concerns the McKinsey opioid settlement. Now, mind you, this is different than the 2 other settlements that the board had considered. This came in after Thanksgiving, actually, late afternoon, the 28th of November. So obviously it could not be put on the agenda for JPF, but I thought it was important for you all to know about this. National Council states that there is a McKinsey opioid settlement currently to remain in the settlement You do not need to take any action. You will remain in unless you opt out by January 5th, 2024. The National Council goes on to say, while the amount of these settlements, 207 million, is relatively small compared to other previous settlements, the J&J and the big three distributors, along with the other, the bankruptcies in terms of Mallinckrodt and Purdue Pharma and Endo International. The case against McKinsey is a different case. And McKinsey not only intended to take on the substantive issues of the case, but to attack local government's power to bring the kind of litigation that we brought in the other cases. So in any event, they go on to say that unless you have a desire to opt out, you don't need to take any action at this time. You will want to have your board consider the issue and make a decision. So that means, and they need to do it before January 5th, 2024, which is the opt-out date. So presumably what we need to do is have a resolution brought by an individual board member or more than one, so that it can at least be brought to the 36 board members, and the 36 board members can say either, yeah, we want to stay in it, or no, we don't want to be part of this. So I just wanted to give you a heads up about this, because I know in the other settlements, we had always gone to JPS and then the board, but given the timing of this, it's not possible. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Any additional comments from the room, please? Any comments on Zoom? All right, so with that, we are going to close then item number 4 on the agenda and move to open item number 5, which is communication shared by committee members. Supervisor Jeffrey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I had coffee with somebody who works for sobriety outfit that originally started in Outagamie County in Appleton, but has now kind of branched their services to Winnebago County. It's Helios Recovery is the name, and they're kind of seem to be a little bit more specialized in specifically with parents that have active addiction and what they can do in regards to how that affects family dynamics, and while also trying to wean them away from their addictions and put them on a path to sobriety. At some point, probably maybe sometime in January, I'd like to put them on the agenda so that they can do just like a 10-minute presentation of what they can offer. Just seems to be another resource for Winnebago County, which seems to be a net positive. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have comment? All right. We're going to close then item number 5 on the agenda. As I mentioned, item 6 is going to be moved to January. So we're going to move to item 7 on the agenda, which is update from the District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Eric Spar.
Right, thank you.
Hi.
I have just a few updates today. I guess maybe not quite as many exciting things as there sometimes are, but there are a few that I think are notable, and sometimes these are useful just to give you a little bit better of a picture of the types of issues that we're dealing with both in our office or in the court system. One of those, talking about a few cases that closed out since I was last here. One of them was a 9th offense, drunk driving. And that's the kind of case that would typically result in a very lengthy prison sentence just based on the offense number. Not that anything extraordinary happened in this single incident, but with 8 prior offenses, that's a big deal. This was a case, though, that had a prior offense in Waupaca County in 2000. So a very old prior conviction where they had looked back at that point at the ones that had happened in 1990s. There's a situation with OWI offenses for collateral attacks where if there were not certain rights given, or if the person resolved the case without a lawyer and they weren't given certain warnings, can't use that prior offense as sentencing enhancer on a new offense. So that was actually dealt with in the year 2000 in Waupaca County, where they had knocked out 3 of the prior offenses that way. The state then, because it's regardless of which county we're in, we are still the state that's prosecuting this process. We're bound by that determination. So this case, once we learned of what had happened in Wapaka, I think the prosecutor didn't realize that initially and not look back at the housing case. The case went from a 9th offense down to a 6th offense, resulted in a shorter prison sentence, still a prison sentence, but a shorter one than it otherwise would have been. But that's an issue. I think it's becoming less of an issue over time. It was really maybe 15 years ago or 10 to 20 years ago, probably when that was most commonly being done, was attacked. I think people are much more conscious now. The court system to accomplish more conscious to make sure that the proper rights are given to document everything appropriately. There are a lot of situations where people had done attacks, for example, on priors from the 80s and 90s, where transcripts did not exist. They had been destroyed, or court records didn't exist. And in a lot of situations, those were difficult to litigate for us because the only person that really could speak to what had happened is the defendant. They have an interest in not telling us some of the most important things. So that was an example of one that had been previously litigated, even in a different county, but it significantly impacted the sentence that happened in this case. We had a couple of cases that, sexual assault cases that went to resolution that I think were significant. One was 2000 cases. This is an Oshkosh Police Department case. It was set for trial a week or two ago. We were unable to secure the victim's presence to testify at trial. So that was a case that ultimately was dismissed because of that. So that, I talked a little bit previously about some issues with trying to get people to trial, to get witnesses present. We weren't able to do that in this case. That case is dismissed without prejudice, which means it can be reissued. Although realistically, it's somewhat uncommon that a case would come back after something like that, but it can. So again, a case where we had been prepared to proceed but weren't able to because of witness presence issues. Another case that did not go to trial, this was a sexual assault charge in a correctional facility. The defendant was an employee in the kitchen. The victim was an inmate there. That was a case that there were some factual issues. It was ultimately resolved as misconduct by a public official. That is still a felony. This was a person who did not really have much of a prior record. I think some convictions about 20 years ago, but was working as an employee, had passed the background check to be at the institution. And it wasn't, I guess when I talk about sexual assault, that's more of a status offense. These were, I believe, two willing participants in the sexual activity. But because one person was an employee and one inmate, that's something that is criminal based on that. So it was resolved as misconduct in office, I mentioned, and that case ultimately resulted in placement on probation for that employee, who is no longer employed there.
And that's a felony.
That's a felony, correct. So there was prison exposure, but based on the nature of the interactions between the individuals, I think that was one of the primary things that resulted in that person not getting a prison sentence. The facts were a little, I won't get into the details of that, but the facts were pretty messy. But yeah, just kind of a view of some of the spectrum of cases that we ended up dealing with there. There's one other case I'll talk about, and I won't go into too many details because it just started trial today. So a pretty significant allegation, repeated acts, sexual assault of a child. It's a 3-day trial, high stakes, just based on the nature of charge. First day finished today. It's probably will go all 3 days. They didn't get quite as far as I think they hoped to today. And I won't go into the facts in case anybody connected to the jurors listening. I don't want to do anything to mess that up. But again, that's an Oshkosh case. Probably the only significant trial in the time period since I was last here. I don't know the result yet. So other than cases, I guess just a couple of things where Supervisor Defferding is aware. We've been working on the mental health court. There's a meeting tomorrow on that, so we continue making progress, and it sounds like we're quite close now to starting a program. It's going to be very small scale to begin, at least. And the hope is that something that would be expandable in the future, but probably would require some resources if we made it larger. The way we're doing it right now, it's not something where there's going to be I think everybody's able to handle the additional burden because we're going to keep the number of participants very low to start. And it's more of a trial run to see how things would work and to see if it's something that we want to try to get into further. Mental health courts are something that have definitely become more common around the state and the country. We have a number of them in surrounding counties, don't have one here. We haven't had one here before. We just had the adult drug court. We had a juvenile treatment court as well. So this is going into another area. There has been a lot of discussion about how to handle mental health issues that spill over into the criminal justice system. And I think one of the issues that we always face is what level of offense or what level of need do we want to try to address? So are we trying to take on very serious charges versus less serious charges? And then are we trying to deal with people who are going to require a significant amount of intervention and really take a lot more labor or time from people that are supervising versus people who have less needs? And so those are the questions that we can struggle with as we create the program. I talked before about the stimulant and opioid recovery programs. This is the possession offenses, felony level possessions for possession of methamphetamine, possession of heroin or fentanyl. This is essentially, if they're able to stay clean for 90 days, they can get the case dismissed. If they're not able to do that, but they're participating in testing, they can get a post-plea diversion agreement where they're on a longer period. They still have to establish longer get involved in some recovery type activities. But we've had in that first 90 days be able to test for 3 months consecutive, which is not what we expected going into it. We then have a number of people who have gone into phase 2. We just had our first person complete phase 2. And that was actually the same week as a drug court graduation. So there were a lot of celebrations of recovery over in the courthouse and on the first floor of the quarantine building. So that was the first person to complete phase 2. We have a couple of them that are getting close. That program has been in existence. The phase 2 as it currently stands for over 1.5 years. So it was going to take some time to get people through it, but it's still relatively small numbers. I think there are people versus in the first phase, there have been many more participants and more completions. The last thing is we continue to do our training program with new officers coming over from the sheriff's and from the police department. We had 3 mornings last week where we had 4 total officers coming over from some from each department. And those are things where we're trying to give them experience of what it's like to look at a case from our perspective, and then what it looks like when it goes into court. And some of those people, depending on what day they show up, they see very different things. Sometimes they've seen trials, one last week or drug work. Just a different experience for different days, but they come when they're available, and we try to make sure that they get to see something that's going to help them in working on their own situations and investigations, traffic stops, and also things in the jail. We've had a lot of people who are currently in the jail because they've recently started as deputies come through that program. So that is I think everything I had, and hopefully I talked a little slower for any note takers.
Great. Supervisor Sloan.
Quick question about the mental health court. Is there any chance, have you reached out to your opposite numbers in Fond du Lac, Allegheny, Calumet to perhaps approach this jointly? Because if we do, we may be eligible for innovation fund dollars from the state of this. Or do you think it's just best to just start small and go from there?
One of the tricky parts with that is if we have human services involved, they are only able to use their time for county residents.
Okay.
So if we had something that, and perhaps that's like stage 2, if we're looking at an expansion, that might make sense where we're pursuing funding and to avoid having to come to county board for that, to try to go through a grant. At this point where we're not asking for any money, then a lot of the burden falls on human services.
Sure.
So then they're in a position where they would only be able to assist people that are residents. Okay. So yeah, that's something, and that's relatively uncommon for treatment courts in Wisconsin, at least, that they're regional, but there are some. Okay. So that is something that happens most places. And I'm not sure if it's because of residency issues and human services, or if it comes from somewhere else, but most places are working within their own county.
Thank you.
Yes.
Supervisor Duffy.
Yeah, just thank you for the reminder regarding that meeting tomorrow. I unfortunately will not be able to attend because it's my work's year-end fiscal meeting that happens at the exact same time, right at noon, so I'm not going to be able to attend. But yeah, that's all I needed to say.
It's great. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, that closes item number 7. Opening item number 8, discussion on the National Opioid Abatement Settlement Fund. This was requested by Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an exhibit to hand out if anyone is interested. We may not even,
Yeah, no more.
and I have, to anybody that's in the audience, this is information that I requested regarding what we have from the opioid settlement currently. To be perfectly fair, this was prior to the budget meeting, and because of budget and the holidays, I have not followed up in any detail at all with Director Kaiser, Collard, or John Dable on it. But I am grateful for the opportunity to speak to it. First, if I could, with permission from Corporation Council and this board, I would absolutely be interested in putting my name on a resolution for the McKinsey settlements. I don't know what kind of language we need to offer a resolution, and would that need to be before GPS? And no, that would have to be, that would have to be December's board.
We have to be careful because we haven't put this on the agenda, but there's not enough time. So
We could talk after the.
after, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, apology, would absolutely be interested in doing that. The second, interestingly enough, not only with the update from Mary Ann, I don't know if you know that the Supreme Court of the United States actually heard oral argument today on another opioid settlement that I was confused with, that Mary Ann helped me clarify on. That one is more specifically to Purdue Pharma. The Supreme Court heard argument on. Apparently, there's been a bankruptcy filing on that one, just in a nutshell, and some of the justices are arguing just settle it. Some of the others are saying that the bankruptcy judge overstepped his bounds. So I'm not exactly sure the disposition of that case. That's going to be very interesting to follow up. Lastly, though, as you look at the exhibit in front of you, I don't remember who I heard this from. Someone said it wasn't even in relationship to opiate funds, that what people do is they defend their island. And I thought that was absolutely a fantastic way to put things per budget. In that goes. I just want everyone to know that all I'm doing is asking questions and looking for options, alternatives, and seeing what other counties and governments are doing. When Chairman Stafford agreed to put this on the agenda, I made a notation that the Post-Crescent on November 3rd wrote an article on what Outagamie County has done. Interestingly enough, the Wisconsin counties magazine also a huge article on what another county has done. I have a copy of the resolution, what Brown County did as far as opioid settlements. Interesting to note that there hasn't been a whole lot of contention in the different ways they choose to spend it. In fact, in Brown County, one of the things that I was absolutely surprised at is one of the things that they used in their opioid settlement funds. It passed with absolute unanimous. Not one person voted against what they wanted to do. In fact, the only measure that was defeated was someone tried to actually increase the funding from opioid settlements to what they wanted to do, and that was defeated. Otherwise, it was absolutely passed. What you see in front of you now, though, is just some questions that I have and want to bring up. You'll see that the total number of deposits so far, at least that dollar amount, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it out loud or not. Does it matter?
It's public record.
It is public record. So far, at least as of the 1st of November, we have about $1.25 million deposited in our accounts. This is from 2 different settlements that I am aware of. This is resolution number 242 2021, that was the big one for a little bit more than $6 million. And then we also have resolution 192, 2023. And what that does is that resolution that also passed the board was $167,000 to $315,000 per year for 10 years or more. So you'll see here on the exhibit how we've dispensed the money. A lot of it has been through Department of Human Services. And again, I'm not looking to challenge any of the programs. I'm only asking questions about what else we can do.
Supervisor, and the DHS goes back to a specific program, correct?
That is one question that I haven't had answered yet. If you look at the disbursement on 12/31, there's one account that ends 59501. And then if you look at the two other deposits on September 30th, 23, it's also Department of Human Services, but a different account. And I have not heard what the difference is yet. But again, to be fair, I didn't follow up since budget time.
Okay.
So
So is that what you're planning to do then is?
that is one of the questions, yes.
Okay, so for tonight, what you're trying to do, just so I can understand, like, you just want us to understand what you're doing here, and that is your thought that you're gonna come back to this board and like to give an update on where this money is going and how it's being spent?
That's correct. And possibly even with these other, with possibly the Sackler settlement, or maybe it's Purdue Pharma is better described, the Purdue Pharma settlement, and this other one, the McKinsey, that there are other programs too that we should also be looking at. Interestingly enough, the sheriff has one before us tonight. And that is the purpose of this discussion point.
Great.
Does anyone have any questions on anything that I may have found? Again, not looking to take anything from anybody. I'm just asking questions.
Right, so this is just more of this is something that you think is valuable for this committee to know where you are, and those are the next steps that you're going to be looking at and bringing it back forward.
Yes, it's been really interesting to see of the 72 counties, those that participated in it, the wide variety of programs that they're using and funneling opioid settlement monies for. I'm not giving you a
So this is a clarification of Corporation Council. Is DHS, if you essentially go between, using the Department of Health Services for the funding of the Connect program?
I believe that DHS has had a long-standing contract with Solutions even before Connect was involved. So there may be some overlap, but yeah, DHS is, I believe, intimately involved.
That's what I assumed. I just wanted to clarify.
I don't know why there are two different account numbers, but
And that would be Health and Human Services Committee, that would be your. Who's the major committee of jurisdiction in terms of where this money is being spent?
well, if it's DHS, if in fact DHS is the recipient, presumably it would be that board, but and again, I don't know if
Maybe a question to ask in terms of oversight, who's been involved in that? So I know that this committee hasn't been.
And again, just because there's two different accounts, I am not asking, suggesting, or even offering at all that anything nefarious is going on. It's just a clarification.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions on this? So I guess there's more to come.
More to come.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to close item 8. Open up item 9, which is consideration vote for resolution. Authorize the use of $60,000 for the lethal opioid abatement settlement fund for the sheriff's program, contracting with Solutions Recovery, Inc. for an on-site liaison for the Sobriety Treatment Assisted Recovery STAR program for the calendar year 2024. Sheriff John.
Thank you. From the sheet that you were just given, when you go to the Solutions Recovery $7,500 a month,
Yes.
That is a resolution that was last month that we brought before you that wasn't voted on, has to go to P and F and then it'll go to the board. So that is for 2023. We were just, allowed to use that money. It should have probably gone through proper committee, but it was, yeah, I didn't control the process of getting it. I asked for it.
Okay. So the one that we're considering now is basically that bringing forward to 2024.
That's exactly it. Okay. So, Captain Dave Mack, our deal administrator, will give you a real short PowerPoint on, what, I know that we talked about it last month, but I want to give you some more stats on what that.
Instead, since we have more than just a brief, update, you can stay there, it's fine. We should bring this to the floor since we're going to. Anyone want to make a motion?
And move to, introduce the resolution to authorize $60,000 for national opioid abatement settlement fund for the sheriff's office program contracting with Solutions Recovery Incorporated for an on-site liaison for the sobriety treatment assisted recovery STAR program for the calendar year 2020.
Second. You have a second? Okay.
Thank you.
Discussion and, here we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, Captain Dave Mack, the jail administrator. We give you kind of a overview of what our STAR program is, as well as how that benefits the $60,000 position that we're asking for. Again, we're the sobriety and treatment assisted recovery for the STAR program. So kind of a history of where this came from. It started as it's a multifaceted program is what it is. We focused on really a three-pronged approach to recovery in our jail. First, we offer a medical assisted treatment program, which is Vivitrol. And we also do recovery coaches, which this would be a supervisor position for our recovery coaches. And when we pair our recovery coaches with our people that are participating in the program, provide wraparound services to both groups. History, why I guess we want it in the jail. Jail is a funnel place for everybody in Winnebago County, not just Oshkosh. It's for the North End. We have all the rural areas, municipalities all use our jail. People that come to jail generally are into a forced sobriety for those people that are substance use disorder individuals. Oftentimes those people have contact with law enforcement, end up in jail in that forced time of sobriety where they really haven't been sober for a long time. And this gives them an opportunity while they're sober for us to meet with them, have our recovery coaches meet with them, and talk to them when they're really at that ready for recovery moment when they're most vulnerable to us. History on our program. It didn't start as a comprehensive program that we are talking about tonight. It started off as really a kind of a bifurcated system. First, in 2022, in July, we applied for a $150,000 COSAP grant for a medical assisted treatment program, which was the Vivitrol portion of this program. Also in 2022, we began working with the overdose fatality review team who had started their solutions peer response team. So the recovery coaches, where they went out to not just to the sheriff's office, but to other law enforcement agencies within all of Winnebago County, to include the sheriff's office and the jail, and really tried to meet people at their most vulnerable to put them in trouble or in touch with some peer recovery coaches. As we did this, specifically from the aspect of the recovery coaches, we were overwhelmed right away with the response. Nobody, including from the sheriff's office, from solutions, as well as the overdose fatality review, really could have anticipated how popular and how successful this program was going to be right away. We were immediately overwhelmed by the requests from our inmates to meet with recovery coaches from solutions. It created multiple problems from an administrative perspective. We had troubles organizing, as you can imagine, when we have multiple meetings, and I'll show you the statistics in a minute. When we have multiple meetings with our inmates, with recovery coaches, it takes a lot of organization back in the jail itself. It also takes a lot of organization from solutions to get the people here to meet with our staff. So it was at that point that we identified the need to really, first of all, try to combine these programs together, because they really ran parallel to each other, but really seemed to be a natural fit together to make a successful program for giving people the most opportunity for success in their recovery. So we reached out to Solutions and asked them what it would cost if we could have an individual that was, first of all, dedicated solely to the jail to meet with our staff, meet with our inmates, as well as coordinate additional resources from Solutions to come in and meet with our inmates and coordinate the conjunction of both programs together, where we are bringing in the medical assisted treatment program as well as a recovery. They initially told us to be about $60,000 a year. And that includes the oversight of the program that we're talking about. And in 2023, it also looked at the beginning portions of the program, where we actually had 3 people from Solutions working with us to build that program. In May, the sheriff reached out to the county exec, and that's when we received the okay from the county exec to move forward with the open. This program continued to grow through 2023, and in September of this year, we were able to really take a good hard look at our first full year of statistical data and numbers. And those that were quite impressive. From the first year, we were able to give 55 injections of Vivitrol out into jail. Our recovery coaches met with 399 inmate participants. From those 399, they had 2,139 contacts. And then post-release, we kept in contact with 63 inmates. Of those 63 inmate participants, 29 of them remained sober, giving us a 46% success rate if we can keep somebody in the program 6 months post-release. So moving forward, we had to look at 2024 and how we are going to fund this program. And I want to talk a little bit about funding of the entire program, as well as the $60,000 that we're requesting tonight. First thing we wanted to do was how could we increase our 300 participants that once they exited our facility, we lost them. And that's when we started looking at how can we put them in contact with the recovery community outside of the jail while they're still in our facility. And what we're proposing, what we're started doing is creating a pod within the jail that's actually a recovery pod. So everybody in our pod will be participating in this program while they're back there. We can have our recovery coaches then work with them right on pod, put them in contact with those wraparound services that they're going to get post-release while they're here, hoping to keep them in the program once they get out. To do that, we're looking at adding 3.5 positions. So we are going to add 3.5 positions from Solutions Recovery for recovery coach positions that will be specifically dedicated to the jail. Go ahead. It's just a review of the stats I just gave you. Go ahead. And for 2024, you see this is what we're looking at doing, adding those 3.5 positions from Solutions Recovery. They'll be providing those wraparound services in the jail. And then from a funding aspect, we're working with the district attorney's office right now, who has $70,000 in grant that they're going to be dedicating to this program. We also were able to re-up our COSAC grant for $250,000, which is $100,000 more than we received last year. And a lot of the reasons that we were given that additional $100,000 were based on the statistical data that we were able to do from our first year of running this program. So between those 2 grants, we were able to fund the 3.5 positions. We also are looking at different cost reduction things that we can do to make this more of an efficient, cost-efficient program. One of the major things that we've identified, the cost of the Vivitrol that we're utilizing is extremely expensive. It's $1,225 estimated for one shot. One shot lasts 1 month. We can utilize oral Vivitrol and keep people on oral Vivitrol for a month for about $23.50. Such a huge, huge difference in pricing there. The difference is that you need to be able to control the distribution of the pill version of Vivitrol. So if somebody's housed in our facility for 3 months, we can certainly get them on in day 1 and make sure that they're taking that daily Vivitrol while they're in here. But we still want to utilize the shot at release, because that gives them a 30-day window of sobriety when they get released from the facility. And we know that that's when the 30 days post-release are the most vulnerable for getting back into or falling out of recovery, as well as overdosing. So that's important that we continue to have that as a tool. So we are dual using the pill as well as the injection form. The $60,000 that we're asking for tonight would be the continuation of that supervisor position that really is meshing that what works with our inmates as well, but also supervises the meshing of these two programs together. Questions?
Any questions? Supervisor Hanson?
Um, because I honestly don't know. And again, not an objection on the creating the pod and having the 3.5 position or the supervisory position. How is it, does that differ from, say, like, because aren't there also counselors coming in from Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics
Yeah,
Anonymous, and that
absolutely.
as well? Are all of those funneled through Solutions Recovery?
They are not, no. So we have volunteers that come in for AA, NA that meet with, the whole inmate population has access to that. They can put requests and come into this. This is a standalone, separate program that while we certainly don't, say no to people that are having issues with alcohol as a substance use disorder or other types of drugs. It definitely is a focus on the opiate section of it.
Any other questions? Supervisor?
Quick question. I know that, obviously Solutions has been doing a lot here in Winnebago County. And I've had a lot of discussions with Trevor too. And, I know that, Solutions, there may be some areas that, they may not be able to address. Do you think that this on-site liaison would be open to like referring them to
Absolutely.
other
In
nonprofits?
fact, we've already been working with DHS. They have their different recovery coaches.
Mhm.
And we're really utilizing the supervisory position kind of as a distributor and a conduit to various other, if inmate Smith comes in off of the street and they've already been working with a recovery coach from somewhere else, we will absolutely work to get them to have their specific recovery coach from whatever other organization they're working with. come in and work with them. So that's not a problem at all. And that's what the position will be utilized for.
Perfect. Okay, that's, thank you. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Isaac?
Yeah, this is to pay for a solution recovery employee.
Correct.
It's not going to be a county employee.
That is correct. Supervisor. Good.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
You bet.
Take any questions regarding that as well?
Any questions for Sheriff?
Presentation and review the hard work that went into it and to continue this recovery program that we have and every kind of so thank you for all your work on it.
Thank you. Other counties are looking at it as well. Other sheriffs have asked about it. Be doing a presentation to Badger sheriffs in March. So,
Supervisor Isaac?
Could you comment on the security issues that this, raises and presents for us to deal with? Because we are talking about people coming off of the street, even though maybe they've been through the whole 9 yards themselves. But could you address that issue of security?
certainly. And every time anyone comes in our facility, there's contraband that could occur. So we make sure that these people are vetted, the coaches are vetted, background checks are done. Certainly, their past is not unsullied because they can't speak the language without having walked that very same path. But we are confident that the searches that we do and the background checks and the vetting that we do, we're as safe as we can be.
Sure, can I add something to that too?
Yeah.
And Supervisor, and that's a great question. And I'll tell you, being a 28-year vet, I'm kind of old school and I had a lot of issues with this right away too. Solutions has been fantastic to work with. Immediately when we started bringing in additional resources, once we had the supervisory position started on board with us, she immediately, and I think she might have spoke to you, you met Megan maybe last meeting. She right away understood the trepidation that we were having about having people coming in, and she herself switched the protocols for having their meetings with their recovery coaches to our professional standard or for special meeting area. So there's a glass in between there. So we kind of cut down on those contraband issues right away. So they're on pod, but they're like on pod visitation basically. So they're meeting with them through a window to cut down on those security risks that you're talking about. And that actually came from Solutions themselves because they wanted to be basically good guests in our facility. So yeah.
Addressing the security issues that this,
Creates, yeah.
brings in, by reason of the type of program.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other, Supervisor Deputy?
Yeah, this something that just popped up here. I know that a lot, I was at that recovery event, and some of the questions that other counties had in regards to this is how does insurance factor in? And maybe if you could just, explain to the board, how, if there is, like if there's Medicaid or Medicare that's involved, how all of that reimbursement works.
That all stops once they become incarcerated, but after they leave, we make sure that they're set back up on Badger Care before they leave, on Medicare, or whatever insurance that they had prior to.
Okay.
So yes, correct.
Yeah, that's part of those wraparound services where once they're released, we try our best to work with them to get their health insurance reset up so we can set up those next appointments for them.
Okay. Yeah, I know that was something that other counties were asking about because they were very curious on the model that we have, and I definitely think that they're going to be looking at us as a model for their counties going forward too. That's all I have.
Great, and I'm just gonna mimic a lot of the comments. I think this is fantastic. We talked about actually during the budget session about the issues we're having with specifically with fentanyl and opioids, overdoses, and just general trafficking and all of that. And we need to come up with solutions to help this significant issue. And it has to be a holistic solution. It can't just be straight law enforcement. We have to help these people get off of it. And this is such a great program to go in that direction. And I think it's commendable, of the sheriff's office to be looking at something holistically, not just, pure enforcement. So it's fantastic. And I think this is great. You're doing a great job with it. Thank you. So with that, no more questions. Okay. All right. We do have the second and on the floor. All right. So all in favor of resolution to authorize the use of $60,000. Sorry, put my mute on. For the National Opioid Settlement, National Opioid Abatement Settlement Fund for the Sheriff's Office Program, contracting with Solutions Recovery, Inc. for an on-site liaison for the Sobriety Treatment Assisted Recovery STAR program for the calendar year 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're going to close item 9 on the agenda and open up item 10, Sheriff's Report.
Okay, just for an FYI, that sexual assault did not occur in our jail. That was in a different correctional
Okay.
facility. I'm not sure where.
I was actually wondering.
Yeah, I'm not sure where, don't care.
Yeah.
Necessarily. Our lost kayaker update, I had been keeping you updated. So on November 26th, Sunday, at about 5:40 p.m., we received a report of a lost kayaker on Lake Butamore in the township of Omro. The 41-year-old male had launched a kayak from the backyard of a residence to go fishing near Terrell's Island. Search operations on the 27th. We looked on the 26th. On the 27th, kayak was recovered on the shoreline, but given winds and currents and all those other factors, it really didn't give us a very good indication of where he might have gone down. On the 28th, we had several inches of snow. 29th, we had marine units out, but we were hampered by ice. There was about 3 inches of ice already formed, and trying to break through that ice so that we could use side sonar and other equipment. It really did not work very well.
Can we use the airboat in that kind of situation?
The airboat was what was used
Okay,
to actually
sorry.
break up the ice, but then the airboat broke down. So we had an issue with that. So we I really are at the point right now, on the 1st of December, we use drones to search the area. And we're waiting right now for the ice to form more. And then we will use, we'll cut holes in the ice and we'll use sonar equipment that will be dropped through the ice to map out the floor and look for any irregularity in that area. But it really is a tough one because we don't have an eyewitness to it. So where exactly he is, we have a general indication from a phone cell ping, but that's it. So it's tough, and I feel bad for the family, but we're gonna continue to do what we can, given what conditions there are, the equipment we have. Any questions on that? I have an ice boat rescue update. Nina Menash's ice boat is out of service. It has a major repair, a bearing, in the motor, as well as some other issues. It is a very expensive repair, starting at $10,000 to $20,000 and going up from there. So at this point, we're not going to repair the boat because there's a pending grant that we may be able to replace the boats. And I'll talk a little more about that.
Did we fix that boat like 2 years ago?
Not that one in particular. I think that was Winnebago, Huygen, that had some damage to the,
Different one?
yeah, different one.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the Amro Rushford one that I just talked about, which is an open type airboat. That one we were using during the ice rescue, and now that needs to be repaired. And it's not something super major, but they're still working on it. It's out of service. So with that, we have 2 boats. We have 2 rescue boats right now. So what we are going to do is lease a 3rd one, and it's $5,000 a month. But we have a water rescue fund that people donate to. It's at the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. So we are going to lease it for January and February. One of those months will be covered by the Battle on Bago group. So they will cover $5,000 of that. You have currently $12,000 in the account, the fund. So we'll spend $5,000 on January. They will cover February.
Do we have to accept that $5,000?
It's going directly to the fund, so it's set up so that, and I'll talk a little bit more about our K-9 fund. We receive donations on a fairly regular basis to that one, not so much the water rescue one, but it's set up that way to go through the foundation, and no, it doesn't require anything. So back to the possible replacement, I do have a CIP project replacement for 2025 through 27. However, I am, once Congress can figure out what's going on with the budget, because I think they passed one just to cover a short time frame, we have been approved to replace all 3 boats through some congressional direct spending fund or grant. That's already made it through committees. The only thing they're waiting on is the approval of the budget.
Is that from a Homeland Security grant?
No, it's a congressional direct grant.
So it's just a direct appropriation.
Yes, yep. It was sponsored by Senator Baldwin's office. The grant was fairly simple. And we have asked, well, we need to, it has gone through committees that we have passed. other counties within and municipalities within the state that have some projects in there too. So with that, and all the boats are about the same age, or 20 years old, so they're getting to the end of life. End of life in the sense of major repairs, et cetera, which we had seen with the Nina Menasha boat. So I will let you know, because that will have to go through committee to be accepted, but I didn't want to, till I know, you know.
Now, the boat that's sitting is Nina Menasha right now. What are we gonna do with it since it's not operable?
Well, if we get these 3 boats, if that goes through, we would sell that boat, and we would look to do it locally. Somebody wants to spend the $20,000 on a repair, maybe like a Tustin Fire Department, something like that, which would be much cheaper than to buy one. And granted, it is near end of life, but it is still something. Sure. Yeah, that's what we would do with the other boats as well.
What's the billing rate for these boats new? And then also, if these are approved by the feds and then us, what is the lead time on delivery then?
It's about 6 months. So if we find out, let's say January, I don't know how long that budget was passed for, the federal, like 60 days or something.
Yeah, the CR is about 60 days.
It's a 6-month lead time. So we get them June, which would be perfect, June, July sometime. The costs in the boats are over $300,000. They are substantial. So I believe it was $990,000 was the grant amount. So, but again, I will bring that all through committees and to the board for approval.
Yes, so with, just on the topic of ice and whatnot, with the ice fishing season approaching in the next couple months, is there any sort of refresh training or, I guess, just concept operations that and partnerships with other agencies that you do this time of year to make sure everybody knows the plan and what's ready for whatever may come this winter?
Yes, Lieutenant Eichmann, we've met before, handles all of that stuff, works very closely with the fire departments, because they're actually the ones that are the first responders that go out there in the boats. Even though the county purchases the boats, they're mainly used by the first responder fire units, Oshkosh, Nina Menasha, and Winnebago, Huygen would be the main 3, and then Amro Rushford has an open air boat. But yes, he ensures that all of that training is up to date. And our divers will spend time on the boats, because it's different diving from that boat than it is a regular boat. Just there's the swim platforms and et cetera, not designed. Okay. Staffing update. We have 1 open spot in dispatch, 1 in patrol, 2 in corrections, deputies in corrections, and that was at some points 15. So we are doing much, much better. 2 booking clerk. We have interviews scheduled in January. Now with the 2 promotions to the SVU and MEG detective positions, that will create 2 openings in patrol. We've made the selections, but they're not effective until January 1st when the budget begins. And we will be, they will begin their training. The new detectives will begin their training. However, their movement to the detectives will be a little bit slower. So we're not creating a large amount of overtime on patrol while we go through that position of filling them. But it will just be a matter of months. I mean, it's not going to be a significant amount of time. And they'll work both.
Do you have an idea of the SVU? We talked a lot about it. tons of different areas that this person would be focusing in. Do you have an idea yet if it's gonna be more fraud or more other areas that we outlined?
The human trafficking, the fraud, are gonna be two of the big, things that we will focus on, and the ICAC, the internet crime stuff. Not just the child porn, but also the sextortion and the other things that are now becoming so prevalent. Which is kind of, this falls into fraud as well. Extortion, so it really will be focused on fraud, human trafficking, and then internet crimes, kind of in that.
And then in terms of time where this person's up to full speed, you're thinking sometime first quarter still, or does it go beyond that?
No, these are the detectives that are actually going to hold those positions are current detectives that have a lot of experience and training already.
Okay,
So bringing the new ones on, they will move into
The
the general
backfill.
detective, the backfill.
okay.
So quick, that won't take long at all. They already have a lot of the training that is needed. There may be some specialty training, but very limited. We just need to get the general detectives on board for placements training.
Okay. Thank you.
Currently, our count is 242. They have been high. We've seen the 250s. But this is a Monday, so we'll go to court. We had a 6-page court list last week, so we will be down. I'm gonna assume in the 225, probably by Thursday or so. The COVID outbreak, we're down to 16 today. Our high was 60. So we're seeing that slip down. Nobody was significantly ill that required any hospitalization or additional medical service that we could not provide, that weren't already provided.
Are those 16 in the isolation area still?
Yes, they're isolated amongst themselves.
Right.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And then we follow public health protocol on timeframes and how long.
Yeah, I'm just curious, do we offer the boosters for COVID?
Immunizations are offered,
Okay.
so the not just that, but for flu shot, COVID, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, just follow up on that. What is the current, the protocol? So it has to be, what, we did it for 3 days or something? Or,
They get tested, so they're isolated and they need to get tested 3 times. The whole pod gets tested 3 times at day 3, 5, and 7. And once we have 2 consecutive negative tests in the entire pod, then the pod is clear. Today was day 1 for that. We actually had all negative tests for new cases today. So we'll test again in, what is today's Monday, on Wednesday, and hopefully Wednesday, if we have all negatives again, should be clear.
there was no interruptions of any kind of services or anything?
No.
For the, because, okay.
No. I'm gonna just give a brief 980 update. So we have another offender coming out. He is to be arrived here on the 19th of December. We'll move into the trailer. We have a vacated spot recently by another offender that was released. We do have, I believe, still 5 offenders at Sandridge. At any given time, they can petition for release and be released.
So does that mean the trailer's full again?
Yes, it will be on the 19th.
Yeah, once we have this, and so Director Eller was here. He said that by the end of December, we're operational. Do we feel like that's actually the case? That
I
we
think-
would be able to house
I think
someone?
February is probably a better. Yeah.
Okay,
But
but we're not in any
no,
trouble right now.
In terms of basic penalties, no.
Okay,
And in terms of this 980
Yeah.
situation,
we have space for anyone that we're expecting.
that's right. And Judge Jorgensen, well, first of all, DHS had to approve the plan. They approved the supervisory plan. And then it was submitted to Judge Jorgensen last week. And he gave its blessings, provided that obviously the sheriff does the community, or the law enforcement does community notification, which they're doing. And then the release date is December 19th.
Okay. And if another one were to be granted, we have 120 days to find housing,
So we're fine.
so we should be fine. And
Okay.
if for some reason we would be, need another 30 days, I'm sure the judge is gonna grant that, given the fact that we're there. I mean, we're right there. Okay. But the last thing I have is we are going to acquire a therapy canine. It will be kept in the jail mainly. We, again, through our canine fund. It is a standard poodle. And it is going to be part of our STAR program, trying to create that environment that is a much more environment conducive to treatment. We will also use it out in the community. We have a particular school that has kids that have had a pretty rough life, and we have had some issues with behavioral problems. We plan on using the dog there as well. So there'll be some community use, but a lot of it will be in our jail as well.
So who actually cares for the dog?
The handler was chosen.
And it's the county.
Yeah,
employee? The
It's a deputy.
Okay.
Yep. Sergeant Melissa Rasmussen was chosen. It.
Do we have a name of the dog?
Gracie.
Gracie?
Gracie.
Gracie.
Changing from Patty to Gracie. Yeah, you know how they just give a willy-nilly name at the breeder? Yeah.
Let's go to the dogs.
We're going to the dogs.
Supervisor Plum?
So this is actually very interesting and coincidental because the city of Oshkosh's therapy dog passed away a couple of days ago. So do you kind of envision the same kind of community visibility that Officer Zapata and Magic were doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe not to that degree.
Sure.
Because this is not a patrol deputy, this is
Sure.
a deputy in the jail. Although, she will be, I'm sure you're gonna see her at community events. We will make sure you meet Gracie as soon as she is, there's a training process. We use our canine fund to purchase, her, and we'll use our canine fund to pay for any training and costs associated with it. We have two different funds. We have one fund that is a general canine fund that people donate on a constant basis. Anywhere from $25 to $500 to $1,000. And I've had substantial donations. That current balance is $68,000. And we also received a large estate donation from Bill and Bernice Duvall. That was in 2022, and that balance is $151,000. But we're only allowed to take a certain portion of that each year, $6,570 a year to make sure that the fund is sustained.
Do we purchase the dog locally?
Nope, the dog was purchased from Tennessee.
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Well, I'm gonna say here. Yeah, that way. Yeah, right. Yeah, we're excited about it. I've spent some time in the jail meeting with employees over the last year. I am amazed at the amount of mental health issues that we have, our inmates in the jail. So we're hopeful that this is something else that can be used to try to calm people. We have to be obviously very careful. Not so much that the dog's gonna hurt anyone, but we don't want the dog hurt. So it's gonna take some time to figure all that out too. I actually got the idea from Grant County. They have a dog in their jail, which has been very, very effective. Calming people down.
Yeah, I'm curious, why a standard poodle? Why was that breed selected?
We went from the advice of a vet, one particular vet, and from where it's going to be trained, where the dog is going to be trained. There's a lot of different breeds out there. I have golden doodles, great dogs, but they're subject to health issues. They're mutt, so they're not quite as smart typically. I know mine aren't.
Where am I?
So a great dog, a great demeanor, but they, both the trainer and the vet were very complimentary of this poodle. It's a standard poodle, but it's like 35 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so not
Smaller person.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the dog?
You'll meet Gracie as soon as she's ready.
I would love that, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one question.
Mhm.
Do you have an update on the issues surrounding the 441 patrol? Anything to share at this point, or are we still?
Still waiting for Department of Revenue to give us some response.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know of anything. I have talked to their chief, talked to the other chiefs as well. It's kind of
process.
Yeah. Nobody's upset or anything. So again, we haven't abandoned them. So the car on 441, that's available to assist with calls. So you have a chiefs meeting coming up. I think it's next week. So one thing I am concerned about is some of the services that we currently provide, and using this rule, Department of Revenue rule, could we be held to provide those services always because we provide them now? So I've already talked to Mary Ann about creating a contract that says, look, just because we take all of your after-hour calls at our dispatch center from your desk, where you used to have a desk person, doesn't mean that if our dispatch center is decimated by I lose 10 dispatchers to whatever. That doesn't mean we're going to continue to do it. It doesn't fall back to you, and you can't say, well, you did it before and you have to pay. Which is why that rule is kind of doesn't make sense. Okay, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that closes item 10 on the agenda. Opening item 11. The next meeting is Monday, January 8th, 2020. This is 23. That is not correct on the agenda. It is 24. I missed that. Okay. 11, yes, we're already behind. That's not good. All right, 2024. Any items for the agenda is due Friday, September 22nd, please. This will give us time to get ready. With that, were there any questions on the next meeting? No, did we? Okay. We're closing item 11. Opening item 12, adjournment. Second, can I have a second? And any, all in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? All right, that passes. You're adjourned.